good old worker and a good old pal, 15 miles on the Erie Canal.
Peter Bernstein has written about the building of the canal from Albany to Buffalo in Wedding of the Waters, the Erie Canal, and the Making of a Great Nation. Peter Bernstein, first, tell us just the scope of this thing.
The scope, by any standard of measurement, or any comparison to other canals, like the Panama Canal, I think is 40 miles, and the Suez Canal is somewhat longer than that. This is 383 miles from Albany to Buffalo. Buffalo is 550 feet above Albany, so that the canal had to, going west, had to climb that high, but there was much more than that because there are undulations in between. There's over 700 feet of up and down or having to build locks to lift and lower boats on their travels. And then the huge job at the western end of scaling the escarpment that Niagara Falls falls over about 20 miles away. The engineering achievement was really mind-boggling. DeWitt Clinton was a serious scientist and ornithologist, fantastically fluent and eloquent speaker with a powerful political urge. He was in the U.S. Senate, and then he was mayor of New York, which was then an appointed position. In these roles, he was important in passing laws for the manumission of slaves. This meant that slaves that escaped to the North would be free men. Very instrumental in starting free schooling in New York City for the poor so that they would be educated. It's a very important person, quite aside from his pioneering, really dogged leadership on the issue of the Erie Canal, which had a lot of opposition for many years before it finally got going. When you read the changes in population and the growth in the number of factories and the number of patents that were issued to people along the Erie Canal in the first 10, 15 years, the development of the West was changed in a revolutionary way. The focus of the country was changed from north-south to east-west. Even after the railroads were opened, the Erie Canal was carrying more freight than the railroads. And indeed today, the telephone lines, the internet lines, everything still goes through that gorge at Little Falls. It's a major link between the Atlantic states and the West. Washington did a small IPO. He'd sold shares to friends. He was hard to turn down. And yet his project really, it went bankrupt. The Erie Canal, on the other hand, was managed by a commission of politicians of opposing parties. It was all publicly financed. Everything went through on time. Everything worked without a glitch. The cost overruns were negligible. And yes, if you had to guess ahead of time which one you would pick, you certainly would have picked Washington.